Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us how his campaign is going to save the Chipping Norton Children's Centre?
Prime Minister.
I support children's centres across the whole of the country. The fact is, in spite of very difficult decisions that have to be made right across the country, the number of children's centres has reduced by around 1%. And like all members of Parliament, I fight very hard for services in my constituency.
But Mr. Speaker, they are going around saying that children's centres are safe and there is no threat to them. But things are so bad, he's even signed a petition in his own area to save his local children's centre. Now, can he clarify, is the petition addressed to his local Tory council, or is he taking it right to the top?
There are more people using children's centres than ever before in our country. The figures are, because he doesn't want to give the figures, there are 3,000 children's centres, and the point I will make is this. This government can hold its head up high because we're actually increasing the money that is going to local councils for children's centres. That is what's happening under this government.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we all wish him luck in his fight as a local Member of Parliament. Imagine what he could achieve if he were Prime Minister of the country. I think we've established his double standards in Oxfordshire. Let's take another example. In Tory Essex, their proposal, I know they don't care about children's centres, but they should hush down a bit and they can listen. Let's take another example. In Tory Essex, their proposal is to close 11 centres and downgrade 37, with the hours they stay open falling from 50 hours a week to as little as 5. So fewer centres, fewer staff, fewer hours. How is that doing what he promised before the election, which is to protect and improve Sure Start?
Let me tell him what is happening under this government in terms of childcare. For the first time ever, 15 hours childcare for every 3- and 4-year-old in the country. That never happened under Labour. For the first time under this government, free childcare hours for every disadvantaged 2-year-old in the country. That never happened under Labour. And also, to come, tax-free childcare under this government. That never happened under Labour. And we've upgraded the child tax credit by £420 under this government. That is what is happening. But let me be clear. One policy we won't adopt, and that is Labour's policy of funding more hours through their bank levy, and I'll tell you why. They've already spent the bank levy 10 times over. Yes, there it is. The Youth Jobs Guarantee, VAT cuts, more capital spending. Mr. Speaker, this isn't a policy, it's a night out with Reverend Flowers.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the people he associates with. He's taken...
Let the House calm down. I'm concerned, as always, about backbenchers, and backbenchers who want to speak should be accommodated. So calm down and let's move on. Ed Miliband.
He obviously wants to talk about who he associates with, Mr. Speaker. He's taken nearly £5 million from Michael Spencer, whose company was found to be rigging LIBOR rates. He's got a party chairman who operated a company under a false name and was investigated for fraud. He's taken millions from tax exiles and tax avoiders. His party has never paid back the money from Azal Nadir. And they're just the people I can talk about in this House, Mr. Speaker. Now, didn't the planning minister have it right yesterday when he said this? The single biggest problem facing the Conservative Party is being seen as the party of the rich.
How extraordinary that on today of all days he wants to talk about the people he associates with and he takes money from. Because what we can now see is that this bank, driven into the wall by this chairman, has been giving soft loans to the Labour Party, facilities to the Labour Party, donations to the Labour Party, trooped in and out of Downing Street under Labour, still advising the leader of the Labour Party, and yet now we know, all along, they knew about his past. Why did they do nothing to bring to the attention of the authorities this man who's broken a bank?
I think we can take it from that answer. I think we can take it from that answer. He doesn't want to talk about his planning minister. Where is the planning minister? Where is he today? Only last January, he was praising him to the rafters, saying he was leading the debate. I think the House should hear more from him. This is what he says about the Tory party, that they stand for people who work for private equity and make a ton of money. He's right, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, we've finally found a public inquiry he doesn't want. He comes to this House and he asks for inquiry after inquiry into the culture and practices of this and that. But when it comes to the Co-op Bank, he's absolutely frightened of it. Now, also, an interesting week to talk about people on the front bench. This week, he has referred to his own Shadow Chancellor as a nightmare. Sorry. I hate to say I told you so, but I've been saying this for 3 years. But actually, that's not the most interesting thing in this fascinating exchange of emails. Labour's head of strategy, yes, they do actually have one, Labour's head of strategy replied back to the Shadow Chancellor, when did built to last become part of our thing? I agree, their policies aren't built to last, they're built to self-destruct in about 5 seconds.
Mr. Speaker, what he has shown comprehensively today is he has no answers on the cost of living crisis facing families up and down the country. That is the truth. And his close friend, the planning minister, is right. He said...
Order. The House must calm down. The questions will be heard, however long it takes. It's very simple. Ed Miliband.
And his close friend, the planning minister, is right. He says this: there are many people who don't like the Tory party and don't trust their motives. And he says the Prime Minister is not the man to reach them. What he's really saying is this Prime Minister is a loser.
What we've seen, what this proves, Mr. Speaker, he can't ask about the economy because it's growing. He can't ask about the deficit because it's falling. He can't ask about the number of people in work because it's rising. He can't even ask about banking because he's admired in his own banking scandal. What we've learned, Mr. Speaker, in the last fortnight, he is too...
Answer must and will be heard. The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what we've learned in the last fortnight, too weak to stand up to his paymasters in the trade unions, too weak to stand up to his bankers, and too weak to stand up to his Shadow Chancellor. We all know it would be a nightmare, and that's why we're dedicated to making sure the British people don't have to live through it.